All right, folks, settle down. Let's all take a moment to breathe and gather our thoughts. I get it. You see government and food prices in the same sentence, and suddenly, it's the apocalypse. The media loves to stir the pot, and it's easy to get swept up in the frenzy. We're all picturing breadlines, empty shelves, and a dystopian future where we're forced to eat our weight in turnips. It's a scary thought, no doubt. But let's take a deep breath. Put down the pitchforks, metaphorically of course, and try to understand what Kamala's plan actually entails. It's important to look at the facts before jumping to conclusions. Spoiler alert, it's not the communist hellscape some are making it out to be. There's more nuance to it than the headlines suggest. Now, I'm not saying this plan is perfect. Far from it. It's got more holes than a wheel of Swiss cheese left out in the sun. But that doesn't mean it's entirely without merit. But before we start stockpiling canned goods and building underground bunkers, let's break it down, shall we? Understanding the details can help us make more informed decisions. I promise, it's not as scary as it seems. There's a method to the madness. The gist of it is this. The government is worried about food prices going higher than Snoop Dogg at a Willie Nelson concert. It's a colorful analogy, but it gets the point across. They're talking about putting a cap on how much grocery stores can charge for certain foods. This is an attempt to keep essentials affordable for everyone. Think of it like rent control, but for your breakfast cereal and instant ramen. It's a way to prevent price gouging on everyday items. Now, this obviously has some folks in a tizzy. Change always does. Farmers are worried about their livelihoods. They fear that price caps could cut into their profits. Supermarkets are worried about their bottom lines. They have to balance between fair pricing and staying in business. Let's take a closer look at how this whole thing is supposed to work. And maybe, just maybe, we can calm those conspiracy-fueled heart palpitations. It's all about finding a balance that works for everyone. So, step one of Kamala's grand plan is essentially the government sidling up to grocery stores and saying, hey, we need to talk about your prices. It's not just a casual chat, but a serious conversation about the cost of living. They're not talking about regulating the cost of caviar and champagne here, folks. No, this isn't about luxury items that only a few can afford. We're talking about the everyday essentials. Milk, bread, eggs, the basic items that are a staple in every household. The stuff that keeps the average American from gnawing on the furniture in a fit of hunger-induced rage. It's about ensuring that no one has to choose between food and other necessities. They're talking about setting price ceilings, which are basically limits on how much these essential items can cost. This means there would be a maximum price that stores can charge. The idea is to make these staples more affordable, especially for families who are struggling to put food on the table. It's about making sure everyone has access to basic nutrition. The government will have to consider a whole bunch of factors, like production costs, transportation expenses, and the overall supply chain. And of course, the need to make sure farmers and grocery stores don't go bankrupt in the process. It's a complex issue with many moving parts. It's a delicate balancing act, and let's be honest, the government isn't exactly known for its grace and agility. But they have to try to find a solution that works for everyone. But hey, at least they're trying, right? It's a step in the right direction. And who knows, it might just make a difference for those who need it most. Now, you might think that grocery stores and food producers would be up in arms about the government meddling in their business, and you wouldn't be wrong. Imagine someone telling you how much you could sell your product for. You'd probably have some choice words for them too. Farmers especially are feeling the heat. They're already dealing with rising costs for things like fertilizer, seeds, and labor. Adding price controls to the mix could squeeze their already tight profit margins, making it harder for them to stay afloat. Supermarkets, on the other hand, are stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they need to keep prices low to attract customers. On the other hand, they rely on those same customers to, actually buy stuff. Here's the thing about grocery stores. They're not all created equal. You've got your fancy pants organic markets where a single avocado costs more than a week's worth of ramen noodles. And then, you've got your no-frills discount chains where you can score a gallon of milk for less than the price of a latte. The impact of price controls will likely vary depending on where you buy your groceries. In affluent areas, where shoppers are less price-sensitive, grocery stores might be able to absorb some of the cost of price controls. But in lower-income neighborhoods, where every penny counts, grocery stores operate on razor-thin margins. Price controls could force them to make some tough choices, like reducing staff, cutting back on inventory, or even closing their doors for good. Speaking of hurting those who are struggling, let's talk about food deserts. These are areas, often in low-income neighborhoods, where access to fresh, affordable food is limited. Grocery stores are few and far between, forcing residents to rely on convenience stores or fast food restaurants for their meals. Not exactly a recipe for a healthy diet. Now, imagine the impact of price controls in these food deserts. Grocery stores, already struggling to stay afloat, might be forced to close their doors, leaving residents with even fewer options for affordable, nutritious food. It's a vicious cycle, and one that price controls could exacerbate. The government might argue that price controls will make food more affordable for everyone, including those living in food deserts. But that ignores the fact that affordability is only part of the equation. Let's not forget about the farmers, the backbone of our food system. They are the unsung heroes who work tirelessly to ensure that we have fresh produce on our tables. They're the ones out there battling the elements, tending to their crops, and raising livestock, all so we can enjoy a delicious and nutritious meal. Their dedication and hard work often go unnoticed, but they are essential to our daily lives. But farming is a tough business, and profit margins are already razor-thin for many farmers. The financial pressures they face are immense, and the stress can be overwhelming. Now imagine adding price controls to the mix. These regulations can complicate an already challenging situation. The government tells you how much you can sell your produce for, but they don't take into account the rising costs of fertilizer, seeds, and labor. These costs are constantly fluctuating, making it difficult for farmers to plan and budget effectively. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either you sell your produce at a loss and risk going bankrupt, or you raise your prices and face the wrath of the government. It's a no-win situation that leaves farmers feeling helpless and frustrated. And let's not forget about the impact on quality. The quality of the produce we consume is directly linked to the resources and care that farmers can afford to invest. When farmers are squeezed for every penny, they might be forced to cut corners using cheaper fertilizers, pesticides, or animal feed. This can lead to lower quality produce and potential health risks for consumers. The ripple effects of these financial pressures are far-reaching and affect us all. Now, let's talk about the impact on your local grocery store. Imagine walking down the aisles and noticing something strange. Some of your favorite products are missing. No more double-stuffed Oreos, no more name-brand cereal, just generic brands and off-brand products you've never heard of. Grocery stores, facing shrinking profit margins, might be forced to make some tough choices about what products they stock. They might prioritize generic brands, which are cheaper to produce and sell. Or they might reduce the variety of products they offer, focusing on essential items and cutting back on non-essentials. In the battle of the grocery stores, it's often the big guys who come out on top. Think Walmart, Target, Costco, the retail giants with deep pockets and economies of scale. Price controls could give these behemoths an even bigger advantage over their smaller competitors. Large chains can afford to absorb some of the cost of price controls, thanks to their massive buying power and efficient supply chains. They can negotiate lower prices from suppliers, spread their costs over a wider range of products, and even operate at a loss in certain locations if it means driving smaller competitors out of business. Smaller, independent grocery stores, on the other hand, don't have the same luxury. They operate on thinner margins and have less leverage when it comes to negotiating with suppliers. Price controls could be the final nail in the coffin for many of these mom-and-pop shops. Remember those farmers we talked about earlier? The ones already struggling with rising costs and shrinking profit margins? Well, price controls could make life even harder for them, especially for small, local farms. Large agribusinesses, like their grocery store counterparts, have the scale and resources to weather the storm of price controls. They can spread their costs over a wider range of products, negotiate lower prices for inputs, and even access government subsidies to offset their losses. Small local farms, on the other hand, often lack the same economies of scale and political clout. They rely on direct sales to consumers, farmers markets, and relationships with local restaurants and grocery stores. Price controls could disrupt these delicate ecosystems, making it harder for small farms to compete and forcing some to shut down altogether. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the potential for empty shelves and supply chain chaos. When the government starts meddling with prices, it disrupts the delicate balance of supply and demand. Farmers might reduce production if they can't sell their products at a profit. Grocery stores might hoard inventory, leading to shortages and rationing. And consumers, fearing scarcity, might start stockpiling, further exacerbating the problem. Remember the great toilet paper shortage of 2020? Imagine that, but for everything. No more milk for your cereal, no more bread for your sandwiches, no more coffee to fuel your morning commute. Just empty shelves and the sinking feeling that things are about to get a whole lot worse. When the government interferes with the free market, there are always unintended consequences.